Bluff catching is one of the most misunderstood moments in poker, not because it is complicated, but because players think it is about something it is not. They treat bluff catching as a test of courage, as if the decision is about being strong enough to click call or brave enough to trust a feeling. It is not. Bluff catching has nothing to do with bravery. It is a range problem. When players talk about bluff catching, they often say things like they had to find a call or they did not want to get bluffed. Those statements already reveal the mistake. They are emotional. They frame the decision as personal. Poker does not care how bold you feel. A bluff catch is not a heroic stand. It is a selection process. Your job is not to call. Your job is to decide which hands in your range are allowed to continue. Sometimes that includes your hand. Often it does not. The key idea most players miss is that you do not need to call often. You need to call correctly. Calling with the wrong hands does not protect your range. It weakens it. A good bluff-catching hand does not look strong. It looks functional. It blocks value. It unblocks bluffs. It reaches the river in a natural way. Those properties matter far more than raw hand strength. This is why top pair is often a poor bluff catcher. It blocks missed draws, it does not block value, and it loses cleanly to polarized ranges. It feels strong, but it performs weakly. At the same time, hands that look unimpressive, like small pairs or low showdown value holdings, often make excellent bluff catchers. Not because they win more often, but because they interact better with the opponent's range. That is range logic, not courage. When players say they could not fold that hand, what they usually mean is that they did not want to feel wrong. That is not analysis. That is discomfort avoidance. Bluff catching also depends on frequency. You are not meant to catch every bluff. You are meant to catch enough of them that bluffing blindly becomes unprofitable. That is the entire goal. You do not need to be a hero. You need to be consistent. This is where players misunderstand concepts like minimum defense frequency. They hear that they must defend a certain amount and translate it into calling in that specific spot. That is not the task. You must choose defenders, not save hands. Strong players fold strong hands all the time. Not because they are afraid, but because those hands do not serve the range. They do not block the right combinations. They do not beat the right hands. They do not justify the call. The best bluff catchers are rarely the hands players want to call with. They are the hands players do not care about. Hands with no emotional attachment. Hands that exist only to do a job. This is why bluff catching feels stressful, not because it is dangerous, but because it requires detachment. You must be willing to let good-looking hands go and continue with ugly ones. That runs directly against human instinct. Poker punishes ego disguised as logic. Calling because you do not believe your opponent is not analysis. Belief does not change frequencies. Ranges do. If you are calling to prove something, you have already lost. If you are calling because your hand fits the structure of your range, that is discipline. Bluff catching is not about being right. It is about being aligned. Aligned with blockers, aligned with distribution, and aligned with how ranges reach the river. When those align, calling is easy. When they do not, folding is correct, even if the bluff exists. You do not need to catch every bluff. You need to stop your opponent from bluffing recklessly. That is a much lower bar and a much quieter one. Bluff catching is not a courage test. It is a range maintenance task. Once you see it that way, the drama disappears. And so do the expensive calls. I am Alex Mercer, and that's the spot.